Moving on to the war in Sudan now, UNICEF says the situation around El Obeid is spiralling. The United Nations Children's Agency says malnutrition is rising, cholera is spreading, and aid workers are reporting a sharp increase in gender-based violence as fighting cuts off roads and drives up the price of basic supplies. Following a days-long advance across North Kordofan state, the army managed to push the RSF west off the road that connects the capital Khartoum with El Obeid, but it remains the epicenter of contestation between the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese army. The war between Sudan's regular army and the paramilitary RSF erupted in 2023 and has since killed tens of thousands of people and displaced more than 11 million nationwide. Joining us now is Derk Segaar, IFRC Special Envoy for Sudan. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us. You've just come back from a week-long trip to Sudan. Now that you're back, paint us a picture of what you saw there.
Yes, so I traveled by land through about half the country, visiting a lot of the local communities, but also a lot of the local aid workers who are doing what they can to support the people, because this is really the largest humanitarian crisis in the world. If you look at the number of people affected, 35 million people need humanitarian assistance. That is 2/3 of the population. And in addition, you see that a lot of people are displaced. You mentioned it, 11 million, I would say even 14 million, because many people have also fled across the borders. And what brought it home to me is, yes, you see the acute suffering in Kordofan, in Darfur, the places where this acute conflict is happening. But actually, after more than 3 years of conflict, the whole country is really, really suffering, is greatly affected. And we need to do whatever we can to help them.
Yeah, like you say, we've been talking a lot about Darfur and Kordofan, but you also spent some time in Khartoum where the conflict started. What state did you find it in 3 years on?
Yes, it was hard to take in the amount of destruction that you saw, especially in the city center. With a lot of building destroyed. From a humanitarian perspective, also a lot of the basic services are affected. It's hard to get access to water. It's hard to get access to electricity. Food is extremely expensive. A lot of the buildings, a lot of the houses of people have been severely damaged, entirely looted. So you see a really traumatized population which has lived through 3 years of active conflict in their own city. But in addition, you see at least 200,000 people who are fleeing from Khartoum, who have fled from Kordofan and Darfur, from the conflict-affected areas, who are arriving there greatly malnourished. Cholera, you mentioned already. Some are really heavily wounded, so that puts an additional pressure on the little resources that are there in Khartoum. And in addition, and that is actually positive news, is that you also see a lot of people returning voluntarily to Khartoum. But we're talking about more than 2 million people on top of these people displaced, on top of the people who are already living there and finding that hard to make ends meet. So the pressure is enormous, and we work very closely with the Sudanese Red Crescent that are there. It's really inspiring to see what they are doing, because they never left Khartoum, despite all the dangers to themselves and to their families. But they're doing what they can with mobile clinics, for example, to fill up the gaps in the health system. They help with a lot of community health workers to try and prevent further spread of cholera, of malaria, of dengue. They provide cash assistance. But you see that the needs are enormous, because there are just so many people in a city that is only just starting to very gradually recover from the conflict that lived through.
A lot of pressure on that city then. We heard the RSF pledged to return to Khartoum this week. How realistic is this, and is the Red Cross preparing for that scenario?
I'm not a military observer. It is neither our mandate nor our expertise in that regard, but we are always preparing for all eventualities. The good thing is that we work with the Sudanese Red Crescent, and they are the only organization that is with 110,000 volunteers active in every single state. of Sudan, the only organization. So they are already there, and we are constantly preparing for eventualities of new hostilities, of new influxes of people, and we try to support them as the International Red Cross, the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies. We try to support them financially, but also in terms of capacity as best as possible to be ready for any eventuality, because it is very, very unpredictable in Sudan right now.
If you're a child in Sudan, what are your prospects realistically? Is there even pressure to join one side or the other to fight? What are your options?
That's a hard question. I mean, it's not a great place to grow up as a kid. I would say, right, it is a huge humanitarian crisis, but at its heart, it's a protection crisis. What we see is that there is extreme violence, there's a lot of sexual violence, there's a lot of destruction of essential civilian infrastructure. And you see as a result that people are terrified and they flee. That is a natural response, but that also means that the teachers are fleeing, and the doctors are fleeing, and the industrialists are fleeing. So you see that it has a huge impact on the economy. It has a huge impact on the medical support that's available, the education system, etc. And then there's the direct threat of violence for children as well. So all these things considered, it's an extremely dangerous place to grow up as a child.
You've mentioned this already. Sudan is one of the largest humanitarian crises. It's yet often overlooked. Why does it struggle to hold the world's attention the way that maybe other crises do?
Well, it is, first of all, it is a country that not a lot of people know, right? It's not a tourist destination. Very few people will have traveled to the country over the years, so there's little personal connections. If you talk from a European perspective, there is not a large diaspora, Sudanese diaspora communities in most European countries. So that also diminishes the ability of people to relate to the country. There are so many other large crises in the Middle East, in Ukraine, elsewhere, that people find it hard to connect to all these things at the same time. And as for journalists, it's been really hard to go into Sudan for already quite a long time. So you don't see a lot of images, a lot of stories coming out. So all these reasons, they add up for the crisis, despite its size, to get relatively little attention in Western media, and as a result also in the hearts and minds of people living in Europe and Western countries in particular. And we see it in the financing as well. In the Sudan appeal of the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies is only 35% funded. You would expect with a crisis this much that there would be a lot of solidarity, but the reality is that there is real scarcity. And one of the solutions to that is to really double down on supporting local organizations. They are local staff, they are already there, they don't need to be deployed, they speak the language, they know the culture, and they are much cheaper. They are much cheaper in terms of deploying them, so they can do more with limited resources. So our plea is really, in this crisis in particular, really support the local humanitarian workers that are there to support the Sudanese who are really suffering.
Derk, thank you so much for bringing us your insights. That was Derk Segaar, IFRC Special Envoy for Sudan.